Hi, this is Pastor Ken from Vineyard of Hope in Osawatomie, Kansas. My prayer for you today is that God would touch your heart in a real and tangible way for a breakthrough in your life as you hear this message. Thank you for watching, and I want to give you a personal invitation to come and see what we're all about. The church information is at the end of this video. Now I hope you enjoy this message. God bless.
First of all, I'm Frieda. This is our couple's testimony because there's a whole lot more. I'm Frieda. I'm a grateful believer in Jesus. I have struggled with codependency, anger, control issues, alcohol, porn, and currently struggling with food addiction. When I first met David in November of 2000, I was spiraling down fast. I was driving around with a water bottle full of tequila and sliced up limes doing shots. I had previously experimented with different drugs, and I'm very thankful that I didn't get addicted or hurt someone out on the road. I was coming from yet another failed marriage. This was number 2. I married my first husband at the age of 16, and he was 24 with 6 kids. I spent 6 years with this abusive man. He knew how to talk me into staying, or sometimes he forced me by staying, saying he would kill me or my family. I was brought up off and on in Catholic church and thought people didn't divorce for no reason at all. By the beatings I took from him almost daily, I believed him. It took the death of my baby brother to leave this marriage without fear. That is when second husband came into the picture. We were co-workers and friends. And I did love him, but little did I know our marriage wouldn't even last a year. David and I were a one-night stand. I had a bunch of hurts, habits, and hang-ups that was leading my life. From the feeling that I was a failure as a wife, my heart was hurting from losing my baby brother at the age of 17 to suicide, a baby with my first husband, but I considered it murder because he beat me. The fact where I was angry with God. David and I clicked that night. I just didn't go around sleeping with random guys. No. I thought it was the alcohol, but weeks went by and I knew it was something more.
I get nervous and I don't like talking in front of people. So, hi, I'm David. I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ who has struggled with alcohol, abuse, and anger. When I met Frieda, my life had already spiraled out of control. Yeah, I can see.
You're doing great, brother. Yeah. I got to say, you look good too.
Of course. No.
Yeah, you go.
I spent most of my time trying to drown or outrun my memories and demons of my past hurts, habits, and hang-ups. I actually wrote this and I can't read it. The childhood of abuse and the recent feelings of being a failure. As I was going through a divorce and the undealt trauma that I was still carrying around in my head. Of the car wreck when my friend died in my arms. I knew that part was coming. It was due to drinking and driving. So, anyway, now the funny part. The night I met Frieda, I had my mindset. I would have one last party with a few friends, and in the morning, I was heading south. My ex-wife was keeping my 2 daughters from me, and this was just causing unwanted anger, as anger was always one of my strongest emotions. Even more so due to my bipolar and not keeping a constant regimen of medication, but a high level of alcohol. A lot. So the night that I met Frieda, her brother kept trying to hook us up throughout the night. And I remember saying, dude, that's your sister. Have some respect. Besides, in the morning, I'm gone. So Frieda and I were on a one-night stand due to her being the aggressive one.
Alcohol?
I locked the bathroom door. She got in. We did click from that first day, and I knew heading south was not happening. We went to her parents and had Thanksgiving dinner. And then we spent countless hours laying awake, talking. All the while I was wondering, when will she tell me how much of a loser I was? I know that part. That's why I didn't read it. Or how I'll never be anything. I'm sure not. I'm still not sure who said, I love you first.
You did.
I think it was mutual.
Our first few years were very rocky on my part, due to, one, being a people pleaser. Through CR, I found out I was codependent, whether it was doing anything for them at the drop of a hat, giving them money, watching their kids with them no contact for days at a time. The fact that I wasn't sure if this is what I really wanted, letting both sides of the family intrude in our marriage, are arguments that I would reflect on my first marriage and compare David to my first husband. This was not a good thing. David had just gotten out of his first marriage in June of 2000. I was 25, he was 24. I had been in relationships since I was 16. David had 2 beautiful daughters that I immediately fell in love with that was about 9 months old and 3 years old. We really didn't get to see them a lot unless their biological mom wanted him to. David and I lost a baby in 2003. Through a miscarriage, I was diagnosed with PCOS and endometriosis. David informed me at the beginning of our relationship that he had been diagnosed with bipolar. I thought, here we go again. You see, my first husband had bipolar. I really didn't know a lot about it because I wasn't educated, but I didn't see in David what I saw in my first husband. The domestic violence, the rage, drug dependency, or a drug dealer, spending sprees.
For the first few years, I thought to myself, man, here we go again. Anytime someone said, I have this to do or that to do, here comes Frieda, and she would volunteer. And often she would volunteer me, which when she said, I'll help, it was, David will do it. Just being honest. And even if we had plans, then we would just cancel them and do their part. When we would argue, I'd feel that Frieda would make excuses of why it was my fault and why I had to be the one to apologize. I should have picked a different color. Many people thought I was an a-hole because I would call it out. I would call out what I saw was happening to my wife. And I'm not Willy Wonka. I'm not going to sugarcoat. My wife was being taken advantage of.
It was a few years into our marriage, the year 2003, I believe. That is when I started noticing David's mood swings, job changes, wardrobe changes, spending sprees, and drinking more. I called this his happy, mad, sad. David would be happy one moment, mad the next, and sad by feeling hopeless and worthless. I remember feeling I don't want to be around this, so I would try to stay gone and run to my cousin's house and be there 24/7 basically. I would come home and he would try to tell me how he felt. I ignored him. He is crazy or blame it on his bipolar. I would tell him that I would never let anyone control me again due to my first marriage. That's the hang-ups I had. I never owned up to his concerns. This went on for quite some time. David had gotten a chance through work to take our clients camping. He met some friends down there in the Ozark on this trip. When he got back, he was different. He seemed more distant. I tried letting him know how I felt, but he said nothing was wrong. We continued to live, not really talking, just passing each other by. I would continue to run to my cousins, and David began driving up north to Maryville, Missouri. Every other weekend, he didn't have the girls. I asked David if I could go with him one time, and he said, "No, you have your crew to run with. These are my friends." This went on for a few months. I started suspecting David was cheating on me. There were secret calls I had interrupted a few times, but he told me he wasn't. I began watching pornography during this time. I confronted David about his actions, but he gave me excuses. I remember a night I had a gut feeling that something was not right. I don't know if David thought I was catching on, but I stayed home from work one night, but I had told him I worked. I lied. I pretended to go to work, but really I hid out down the road. Our town had a payphone at the time. David had gone to the payphone late that night to call someone. I pulled up. To his surprise, I confronted him and the friend that was on the phone, which was a woman. Our conversation was heated. We went home to discuss our options. I wanted him to leave. One of my characteristics was I told him that I hated him and always wanted him to leave when we argued. We ended up getting through this. We still did not seek counseling for our marriage or help for ourselves. We seemed to be doing somewhat better, but I stopped going to my cousins all the time, and I spent more time at home.
Frieda spent a lot of time at her cousin's house. I thought to myself, well, you know how this one's going to play out. Same as your last marriage. She's always gone, and it's your fault. And since you have bipolar, you're crazy. Anyway, why would she want to be around you? Often we would argue. I would hear those so familiar words. I hate you. Even though those words cut like a knife, I would often say, join the club, there's a lot of you. Join the club, there's a lot of you who do. But nobody can hate you like I do. Or hate me like I hate myself.
A few years down the road in early 2000, I started noticing patterns again. The job changes, spending sprees, his mood swings were out of control. And it was as if we had to walk on eggshells. Even when the girls would get to come for a visit, they would always ask, why does Daddy sleep so much? And why is he so grouchy? He was short-tempered with us and always had a negative attitude. I continued to go along with the cycles happening, feeling that if I would say anything, he wouldn't love me or want to be with me. In April of 2008, I had to use his phone to make a call. He usually wouldn't let me have it. It was in our vehicle, and a text message had come through from one of our mutual work friends. I had proof of his affair right in my hands. I was so hurt and sick to my stomach, I confronted David, and he admitted it. We went home and talked about it. David was not sure who he wanted to be with or who he loved. I begged him to choose his family. I gave him options, not boundaries that I have learned, like I learned in CR. I continued to watch pornography to spice up our marriage. Our relationship was iffy for weeks. When David made his decision to stay with me and work on our marriage, I was really happy. Things started to seem to get better and back to normal for us. But one evening I was looking in his wallet for his hunting and fishing license, and I found a SIM card that goes into a cell phone. I asked him what it was, and he told me it was from the woman that he had the affair with so that they could keep contact. I was livid. How could he lie to me again? I ripped that SIM card into shreds, and if anybody knows how tough that thing is, it was my adrenaline. I ripped it up, and I put it in her folder at work with a note. I told him that if he wants us to work, that he had to stop all communication with her. The woman started a bunch of stuff at work and had an order of protection put on David, which she was the one that was stalking us. We ended up going to court to get one on her for the safety of our family due to her driving by our house and leaving stuff there. After this, I felt my heart drifting away from the family I have always wanted. I became resentful towards David. We ended up moving in with my cousin. due to our landlord. While we were there, we were very unhappy. I told David I was unsure if I wanted to be with him. I felt myself returning to be somewhere else, wanting to be somewhere else. I met up with an old acquaintance and ended up having an affair with him. I told David and said why I did it. I was to get even. He was hurt. He tried to hurt himself and wanted to die. I said, how can you feel this way when you've done it to me? With the help of David's brother, we went to the hospital to get help. After David got out, we ended up finding another place to live with a coworker, but David didn't really like her. This was not a good situation for us either, but it was closer to work.
We moved in with the cousin that I felt Frieda was being a second wife to. I was out of place, and when the husband made sexual comments to my wife, I felt I couldn't say anything or it would cause a huge fight between Frieda and I. I spent a lot of time sleeping as if I was, and if I was to admit it, I was depressed. I felt I was at the bottom of a dark well with no way out. And even though I had hurt Frieda, she was the only one that loved me, and now she didn't even want me. I attempted suicide several times and had no will to live. My wife didn't love me. I felt my wife didn't love me. I didn't get to see my children, and besides, everybody would be better off not dealing with me. Each attempt was just another failure. Frieda, along with my brother, had me admitted to a psych ward. I was hurt watching them leave and knew I couldn't leave with them. I didn't sleep the whole time I was there, despite the heavy sleep medication they gave me. And my roommate even asked to be moved to a different room because he said that I was creeping him out. I would just sit in the windowsill and stare out the window, and he thought that was creepy, I guess. I would sit in the windowsill watching outside, wondering what my family was doing and if they even remembered me.
In 2010, we found our own place. Things were still not going good. We each were struggling with our own hurts and hang-ups. David was wanting to work out our marriage, but I had doubts. We ended up divorcing in July. We tried to live together as friends, but as months went by, it was not working. We each were jealous of what each other was doing. At the beginning of October, the end of November, David moved out. He soon moved in with a woman. I lived by myself. Even though I tried to stay away from him, he kept pursuing. Now you were the one pursuing. It was just as much my fault as it was his. Now I had become that woman who was a homewrecker. I finally told David that I could no longer continue to do this. A short time later, in February of 2011, David called and said that he had not been happy for a while. He said he got custody of our oldest daughter. He said that he wanted his family back. He asked if we could try again as a family. I told him we needed to see if our oldest was okay with that. She, of course, said yes. They ended up moving back in with me, and we started to work on us again. We started going to church together. I started therapy, but we still had our struggles, and we were learning how to let go and let God. David was one who didn't like to take medications. He did other things to treat his episodes or cycles, like drawing, playing guitars, working on cars. David and our oldest did not get along very well most of the time. I was the middleman, causing friction in our marriage. I learned through Celebrate Recovery that I was codependent and an enabler to her, not wanting to lose the love she had. We ended up getting custody of both our girls, and they chose to let me adopt them. In 2013, we continued to go to church and put God first. I felt God changing me. I got baptized, as so did our oldest. David and I began helping in the church with children's church, the church nursery. He was on the worship team, and we started going to Celebrate Recovery. And he did the jail ministry. Life was going pretty good. Sure, we had our issues, but we learned to pray through them.
We did divorce, but we tried to live together. Not a good idea. As friends, I mean, hey, it's no different than my first marriage, or when Frieda was always at her cousin's, only we didn't have papers saying you're married. Even though that's not what I wanted, at least Frieda was still in my life. And if I keep trying, maybe someday she will want me. I mean, nobody else is going to. I did move out, and I lived in a camper on my grandparents' land. Even though I was dating another woman, I never planned to move in with her. But next thing you know, you'll see this as a cycle, another bad choice. I still wanted the family I began with Frieda, and I would do anything I could. I would follow her around to spend time with her, even though I had another life. Frieda did say that she felt she could no longer continue to see me in secret. In my mind, I was like, hey, I'm not hiding. And I did tell her that she was the only one that made me happy. I did get custody of my oldest daughter, and I knew I was not raising her in the situation that I had got myself into. And I knew that she would need Frieda. We immediately moved in with Frieda and started to work on being a family. And from the start decided that we needed what we needed, and God was at the top of the list. I'd love to tell you that our lives were happily ever after, but that's not our fairy tale. Oh yeah, this is still me. We did start going to church together. Though we still had our struggles, we were on the right path. I started playing guitar in the worship team, and then was asked to play at CR, thinking, okay, I can play guitar and then I can sleep out the back door from the stage. I agreed, with no expectations of becoming a leader. And then I was asked, hey, do you want to do Celebrate Recovery at the jail? My immediate response was, they won't let me in without keeping me. I have a history with the jail. Don't write your name in the cell, you will see it again. But they actually let me in for about 3 years. But I got to go home each night that I went.
David and I did get remarried that July of 2011. So we've been together, excluding those 4 months, for 21 years now. In late 2015, go ahead. In late 2015, our youngest daughter would call or text me saying David was being mean, not himself. She wasn't sure what she did wrong to make him so upset. She said that he would talk about a coworker that was a very good friend of mine, because David had once told me in the past that he didn't really care for her. I told her that I was sorry he was being that way, and him talking about her was nothing to worry about. She told me, Mom, something is not right. But I tried to ease her mind. As weeks went on, she would describe patterns that she's seen in him, because I worked a lot at this time, that I had seen patterns in his past cycles. To comfort her, I checked his messages. Through T-Mobile, I could not see the messages, but there were a ton of phone messages. I confronted both him and her, and they denied having an affair, stating the reason was because of work problems. Our youngest did not believe them at all. Again, Allie, I am sorry. I thought, there is no way he would jeopardize our family after everything we've been through, him being a follower, a leader of Christ, and being in Celebrate Recovery. I did notice the confrontation made David a little agitated with us. I started seeing small patterns again that he had had in the past. One night I got a phone call, and it was our youngest bawling. "Mom, I can't take this anymore. He is not the daddy that I know." She asked if she could move out. I told her no way. I told her that when I got home I would talk with him. I used his phone to look up a support group for us all to attend. A message had came through from that coworker that he did not care for. It said, "I miss you like crazy." My heart instantly knew what my brain was asked. He was cheating. Once again, I went and woke him up to get the confirmation that I did not need because I already knew. But when he said yes, he was pale and he started crying. He was sorry and he didn't know why he was doing this once again. I immediately forgave him and her. Forgiveness. That I refused to carry the feeling of betrayal, anger, hurt, and shame for them. That I learned to release from CR. I do not like to feel that way. I immediately prayed and called support, and called in on my overnight shift and stayed home to console our youngest daughter. I apologized to her and asked her for her forgiveness for not believing in her. Through Celebrate Recovery, I had learned to set boundaries. The healthy boundaries that I set for David was 1, he needed to seek professional help, and if they recommended meds, he was to start on them, because his rapid cycling were out of control. 2, we were to start therapy, a support group, or whatever it took to educate us in bipolar. 3, we were to start the 12 steps again, all over from the beginning. And 4, if I ever found proof again of an affair, I was done with him.
I'd like to tell you that I followed the good Christian father and husband, but I can't. And when Frieda and my youngest confronted me on having an affair, I admitted to it. Expecting Frieda to flip out and waiting for the worst, I felt my soul was gone. But those famous words, "I hate you and I want you to leave," they never came. She simply said, "I forgive you." Frieda set some boundaries, and so did I. I didn't like medication, but agreed that if that's what I had to do, if that's what I had to do. And I was adamant about going to group every week. Though not at first, more from not liking to talk to people about my problems. But I would not miss a single CR meeting.
In February of 2016, just a couple months after I found out about the affair, I was told that the woman was pregnant. My heart broke into a million pieces, but I stayed strong, and I refused to give devil the foothold. I immediately gave it to God, but now I had to live with not knowing if this baby was my husband's, a baby that I felt should have been ours. Only because of Jesus did I forgive. We ended up finding out the baby was not David's. As we did the DNA test, I asked if I could pray over her and the baby. She started bawling and said yes, and she asked me to forgive her and apologized for hurting our family. I told her that I did forgive her. We continued to go to CR. David and I and Allie began going to DBSA. Every day I thank Jesus of where I am at. Through CR, I have learned to release anger, offer forgiveness immediately, hold people accountable for their actions or words without worrying what they think of me. I hope that they can do the same for me, and that I expect that. I love my husband very much, but the love I have for Jesus is beyond measure. Since 2016, David and I have been stronger than we ever have, but only because of Jesus. We owe a huge thank you to the man upstairs, CR, DBSA, and everyone that has stuck beside us through this journey we call life.
I continued going to the weekly group meeting, the DBSA, and we started the 12 steps, the Celebrate Recovery 12 steps from the start, and I soon rededicated my life to Christ. Though I am not perfect, I try to be better than I was the day before. Through Celebrate Recovery, I have learned to set healthy boundaries for others and myself, hold others and myself accountable for my actions and their actions. When wrong, I promptly admit it and not only ask for forgiveness, but show that I am sorry. And I have also learned that you can never outrun yourself, and you can never run from God, no matter how far you try to. No matter how far you try to run, God is always there. Thank you for letting us share.
Don't run yet.